Welcome to episode 14 of Fizzy's Wacky World of Wrestling. My name, as always, is William Fizzpatrick, and welcome to the show that is Fizzy's Wacky World of Wrestling, where we cover wrestling-related topics about, well, WWE, sometimes we cover sumo wrestling, and sometimes we cover other promotions. But this week we have the Fallout show of Extreme Rules to talk about, as well as this week's Raw and Smackdown to discuss. Joining me today once again is Sal Cusmano.
Hey everybody, and welcome to part 3 of the 3-part epic public execution of Lana.
Okay.
Yes.
That's right. Yes, of course, it is of course Lana week here on the site for some reason, because she apparently appeared on SmackDown, but first we are going to talk about Extreme Rules before we get to the Lana discussion.
Yes. I'm sorry, guys. We have to sort of bait you into this a little bit. It's good marketing.
Mm-hmm. So let's see here. Extreme Rules was a very interesting show to start off with, and also I would like to apologize to our viewers who were expecting us at the usual 12 p.m. start time. Thankfully, thanks to the power of Cat, I actually managed to get up about 5 minutes before the show started.
Yeah, but we're here. I'm sure our fans and our listeners can forgive us for being a little late. Stuff happens.
Yep, and also the live broadcast will be posted directly after this show is over, because it is live, our second week of live broadcasting. Live TV, it sometimes happens like this. So, our first match, let's talk about the pre-show match, because it does have some storyline importance to it.
Yep. And man, this was probably one of the matches of the night. Like, I think most people would probably say it's going to be the main. But if someone were to tell me this pre-show opener between Apollo Crews and not Akira Tozawa, he comes into play later, but Apollo Crews and Kalisto was their match of the night, I could agree with them. Now, if they told me that would be match of the night before this pay-per-view happened, I'd call them crazy. But it was. I mean, it was just a really, really fun match, Fizzy, And as much as I'll bury on this show, this is one of the few things I will never, ever bury, because this match was great. Apollo Crews and Kalisto, they worked very, very well together, probably because, they've been in Dragon Gate and Dragon Gate USA together.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a great match. The story with Titus trying to recruit more people into his Titus brand, and, and Apollo coming up short here, but it was great. Kalisto got the win, and it played into some stuff on Raw.
Yes, it played into some stuff on Raw, and it also played into some stuff on 205 Live. So basically what happened is that Kalisto won the match against Apollo Crews. Then Titus O'Neil decided to step in and try and defeat Kalisto himself. He didn't.
Yep.
Then Titus, with the help of Crews, is beginning to try and recruit Akira Tozawa to his Titus brand.
Yep. He likes his catchphrase. The man is smart, Fizzy.
Yes. So basically the man is, like we discussed last week, he is essentially the character of a sports GM or sports agent in this case, trying to recruit people to his brand of athletic success.
Yep. And honestly, I like it. I've got on record in the Daily and saying that I want Titus O'Neil to manage Team Dragon Bro.
Yeah, I think that actually works out in storyline, and also it makes use of Titus's biggest strength, as we said last week. His talking is amazing.
Yes.
His ring skills, not so much, because he's an ex-football player, and, well, those athletic days are far, far past for this guy.
Yeah, I mean, Big E has been a great, not the greatest in ring worker, but he's pretty good and stuff. But yeah, a lot of ex-football players, whether it's due to injury, whether it's due to not really getting the proper training, they don't always pan out. But Titus, he's great on the mic. He has a hell of a personality. So, I think the only issue I have is it seems like they're keeping him heel. I feel like him being the face manager of Team Dragon Bros would be so good.
Mm-hmm. But then again, Kalisto is naturally a Rudo, and Apollo Crews is kind of unlikable. So you have two heels there. The only face I can realistically see is Tozawa.
Yeah. Well, I think Apollo could be a good face. And also, I have to give a shout out to it's 999 Maggle or 999 Maggle. He has a great point for the team name. I love hashtag Titus Dragon Brand.
Ah, Titus Dragon Brand. Okay.
I actually really like that. It's got the Dragon Bros, it's got Titus, it works.
I don't think that they'll be able to use that title, though, because of trademark issues with Dragon's Gate Japan.
Yeah. I hope not. I don't think Dragon Gate will give them too much of an issue. I mean, at best, you could say they got inspiration from it. Although, then again, I'm not a copyright lawyer, and good lord, anyone who's worked in copyright law, they could tell you how much of a minefield it is.
Oh, certainly, but I think just using the Titus, I just think using the Titus brand logo would be the smart option, and the people who are in-depth fans who could potentially use the not the actual name, the Titus Dragon Brand, because I think that would lead to some problems.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it did, but you never know. And I don't think WWE would even really want to bother with it. So
yeah, they don't want to mess with the Toyamon groups because, Toyamon wrestlers, Toyamon refers to as Dragon's Gate because originally Ultimo Dragon was the one who started up Dragon's Gate with his Toyamon Dojo. It was an offshoot of that. Then Ultimo Dragon left Dragon's Gate a few years ago, I believe, about 5 to 7 years ago. And so basically Dragon's Gate has been on its own with this first group of students and a bunch of other guys who have come through the ranks.
Yep, then it got involved with Gabe and Dragon Gate USA, although that's kind of dead and evolved to its place, but that's a whole different thing. But
yep.
It's a good wacky little promotion over in Japan that's pretty much a mix of Japanese strong style and Mexican lucha libre. It's honestly really cool. So
yep, I've tried watching multiple shows of theirs, but the trouble with Dragon's Gate is the fact that it's often very dull. If you see a Dragon's Gate worker on an independent card, chances are they're not going to put the fullest amount of effort in, unless it's an actual Dragon's Gate show, which they do a good job. Their main events are often awesome. It's just that their undercard is sadly lacking.
Oh, I think it's gotten better recently because they have Yosuke Santa Maria, who was in a Zan Exotico in Japan. So, I mean, if you're like transgender or like LGBT or something, that might throw up a few red flags because one, Exotico, two, in Japan, I mean, as much as I love Japan and their culture, they don't exactly have the best views, shall we say, of transgendered people and LGBT people in general. But that's their culture. I don't want to bury them too hard because, there is such a thing as cultural relativity and relevance or cultural relativism. So, it personally bugs me, but I don't want to bury an entire culture. So I'm just going to sidestep that so we can move on to the next match because I don't want to get into politics.
Oh boy. And this next match is where the show truly starts. If you were wondering where I was for a couple of days, folks, and wondering, where is Fizzy? Why isn't he here? Or anything like that, besides the fact that I was busy for most of the week. Well, part of it was trying to process this match. All right. I know that Sal wanted to start off with the burials, but this isn't really going to be a burial, more so an intellectual rant.
Go ahead and bury away, Fizzy. It's
not a burial, Sal. It's intellectually, I'm ranting about the fact that why was this 20 minutes?
Because they needed to kill time.
Why in any intellectual universe would this match, of all matches, be 20 minutes long? Wouldn't we give that time to the Steel Cage of Deletion match? Or any of the other matches on the card, apart from Bailey Alexa, which we'll get to later, by the way, folks. This match, 20 minutes of Dean Ambrose is pain for me. 20 minutes of The Miz was most likely pain for Kane Knight.
I don't think Crazy Chris was too fond of those 20 minutes with Miz either, unfortunately.
Oh boy, and so it's easy to see why, because the problem was the structure of the match itself. It was alluded to by Chris. There were some very big structural issues. To start off with, Miz attempted to cheat repeatedly to get Dean Ambrose disqualified, because the story of the match and this whole feud is the stipulation of if Dean Ambrose gets disqualified, he loses the title. So naturally, Miz decides to play into that strategy of trying to get Dean disqualified for the first 3 minutes of the match. The
Yep.
problem? The next 15 or 14 minutes of this match is straight up pure wrestling.
Yes. I will let you finish, but when I get into this, I'll explain why it made sense to me and why I liked it. But I'll let you finish.
Of course. But the problem in the last 2 minutes or so, Miz suddenly decides, I need to start cheating again. Brings Maurice in, who slaps Miz in the face, which was a interesting spot. Now, this was a callback to some prior matches that Miz and Dean had on SmackDown and also a few on Raw. So there is some nice callbacks here. That is one of the few positives of this match. Unfortunately, does not save it from the fact that we have to watch Miz Dean Ambrose wrestle and flail around the ring. Like, oh my god. The horrific rebound clothesline makes a return.
Oh god. Okay, that's a spot that needs to die.
Yeah. As well as just really bad timing by both parties. Miz is trying to get the best out of Dean that he can, but even the Miz isn't a miracle worker here, especially when it comes to in-ring work. He is a good professional wrestler. He has managed to make himself better, but still, he has to carry a literal sack of flour in Dean Ambrose through a 20-minute long match. Basically, it's like Dean attempting to wrestle Chris Jericho at that Asylum match. I didn't think I'd have to deal with another pain of a 20-minute long match, except thankfully this time it wasn't a hardcore DQ match with steel cage elements and a potted plant.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think it was as bad as the Asylum match. Nothing was as bad as that.
Yeah. So this match was a match that I did not particularly like, and I did not like the fact that this opened the show, because it basically set the show down a precipice of going down many highs, but many lows as well.
Yes.
So, Sal, what are your thoughts on this match?
Yeah. Before I get into my thoughts, I feel like this is the perfect time to bring up the analogy for the whole show. I said this in the daily. I said it to you yesterday. This show was, and I know you're somewhat into hockey, you're not the biggest hockey fan, but for anyone who isn't a hockey fan, having your team lose a game 7 in double overtime is one of the most heartbreaking things that can ever happen to you. It really, really is. That is what this show was like. And here's why. You had a lot of good on this show. You really did. You had the opening stuff, the pre-show match. You know, you had the main event. And you had the mixed tag, which we'll get into in a bit. You know, there was some actually good stuff that people could get excited for.
Yeah.
But when you leave it, you know, you leave the whole show, you kind of feel down because so many heels won.
I didn't really have any issue with the heels winning on this card, though.
Yeah. Well, I do feel like, because pretty much every match except the mixed tag and the pre-show, a heel won. So I could see how that would bring the mood down for some people. But getting into this match specifically, and here's the whole thing and why I feel that this was pretty good. I know everyone had issues with Dean seeming like he's an idiot. Allow me to offer my sort of counter example here. To start the match, Miz tried to bait Dean into getting DQ'd. Dean almost fell for it a couple times, but then he calmed himself down, and then they proceeded to have a wrestling match. You know, because Miz couldn't bait him. Now, I know people have issues like, well, why didn't Miz try and get Maurice to slap him right after that? Here's why, and it goes back to the callback. For those of you who don't know, John Cone was the ref. In the match where Dean won the IC title on SmackDown from Miz had Maurice slap Dean to get Miz DQ'd so Miz would keep his belt at the time. John Cone ejected her. Miz pulled the reverse here. Here's why he didn't do it earlier and why I think he even hesitated to do it here. Because he knew, or at least he thought, that John Cone would probably not fall for it. So it was sort of like maybe a last-ditch effort, an ace in the hole type thing that, screw it, I'm going to try it. But at first, I'm not going to get rid of Maurice yet because she might be able to help me with the distraction.
Yes, and of course he's not going to get rid of his muscle right away in the match.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think he waited so long, because he knew John Cone from past experience, he wasn't, there was at least a 50% chance he wasn't going to buy it, and he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the structure of the match didn't bug me too much. I could see some people saying it made Dean look like an idiot, and I know there was some complaints about the finish, but that finish was anything but clean. Miz launched Dean into the ref, took out the ref, and then pinned him.
Yeah. Basically, as Dean was arguing with the ref not to get himself disqualified again, Miz proceeded to hit the skull-crushing finale on Dean and caused the pinfall. See, I don't have any problems with any of those elements. It's the 15 minutes in between those two segments that is the big issue in this match.
Yeah,
Dean's awful ring work, as showcased once again, and even the Miz, who I disagree with the point that you're making, Michael. Miz actually is a very sound ring worker.
Yeah, I think
I'm not expecting miracles from Miz. I know that he's worked very hard at his craft, but he cannot get Dean, who is a guy who is horrific at ring work, to work a 20-minute long match with the psychological elements. And Dean's psychology is actually one of his big strengths. That's why those DQ segments were so good.
Yeah, I feel like, that's the thing. I feel like when Dean's doing some stuff like that, his psychology can be good, but then he does stuff like the lunatic lariat and his psychology is just gone. He's really hit or miss when it comes to psychology.
Sure, but with these elements, with the DQ elements, it worked. With everything revolving around his wing work, it doesn't.
Yeah. And another reason why I didn't think Dean got buried too bad here, it also has to do with the next night on Raw, which I'd say we just get into it because they're directly related.
Sure.
Miz held his IC title comeback tour celebration, and it was beautiful. So beautiful. Until it stopped being beautiful. And here's the thing. I think they made Dean look really smart here. They made Miz look pretty intelligent too, because here's what happened. Miz had his title celebration, and there happened to be a bear mascot for some reason there. Maurice says, I didn't get that bear, and Miz, not being an idiot, just proceeds to beat the ever-loving crap out of this mascot. Goes to pull off the head and says, and here's Dean Ambrose. Nope. Wasn't Dean Ambrose. Miz then had a great line and at least you can tell people you got beat up by the IC champ, which honestly, why this man isn't not world heavyweight, but a universal champ is beyond me, but I digress again. He then got a present from Maurice, which he thought was Dean Ambrose at first, and he proceeded to go full Ric Flair on this present, and it was amazing. Beating it up. I mean, like they said, I think it was Curtain Jerker said last night, all he was missing was taking the jacket off, and he would have been full on Ric Flair.
Yep.
So that was great. And then Maurice left, and then it turned out Dean was the cameraman.
Yes, well, the reason what the present was actually a clock.
A grandfather clock, because it's timeless like Miz. Poor Miz.
Well, I guess that her and Cesaro are going to be crying about that clock because, so technically, Miz, I wouldn't show my face in Switzerland at this point because I think beating up a grandfather clock is technically illegal in that country.
Yeah, they do make some very nice clocks over there. I have to give them that. Very good craftsmanship. They're nice. So,
yes. So anyway, while Miz worries about a potential legal ramifications from the nation of Switzerland, he then gets attacked by Dean Ambrose, who's disguised himself as a cameraman.
Yes, and here's where I think they actually made Dean look good. I honestly think Dean planned this from the start, and here's why. He put the bear there, obviously, the guy in the bear suit. He probably saw, while waiting, he probably saw that Maurice had gotten that big box. He thought, how can I play this? And he came up with this plan, put the bear person in there to first, raise their suspicions and get Miz distrusting. Have him destroy the present Marie Scott for him, and then she leaves because, he knows how it'll work. Then Miz is all alone for him to destroy.
Yeah.
It was, and here's the weird thing. It was total mid-card comedy segment, but it was good. It was great.
Yeah. Because
the
Miz is not Ric Flair. He's actually better than Ric Flair in these segments.
Yes, he is. But the only thing I don't like is the fact that he is so good at them because it gives Vince the excuse to keep him in mid-card comedy segments instead of, being top heel.
I think he's fine at this point because, like I said last week, The Miz has been near the main event or at the main event level for closer to 5 years at this point, if not longer. So we don't want to burn out the audience on Miz yet. We're just still trying to revive The Miz's career at this point. So at this point, I like keeping The Miz in the mid card at this time.
Yeah, I guess it's more of the fact that, when I see how good Miz is and then I see, like the guys they have ahead of him, and over the hill Samoa Joe, who, in all fairness, killed it on Raw, but we'll get to that later, and in the Fatal 5-Way. Bray Wyatt, who, he's Bray. And, you have those two ahead of him, and it's like, looking at the talent level, I think Miz should be ahead of both of those two. But
sure, but Miz is in the more important segments at this point, except for the fact that Joe is in the main event storyline right now, and Bray Wyatt is now in a feud with Seth Rollins. We'll get to those a little bit later, but first we have a mixed tag match to talk about.
I mean, there wasn't much to this, but it was fun for what it was. And the most surprising thing happened. A hometown face won a match.
No wonder there was flying bacon outside of my house today.
Yes. Only the second time on pay-per-view this has happened. I honestly think it might have been like the second time this whole year it's happened in terms of regular TV, too.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we definitely are out of the frying pan and into the bonfire on this show.
Yes, exactly. Because, this doesn't... I mean, I think it's stupid, Like, I could sort of see you having a hometown face lose if you were in their hometown for, like, an extended period of time. Like, if you're there for, like, I don't know, like, let's say, like, 5 weeks straight. You have your hometown face maybe lose like the first day, like the first week they're there, but win like on the last week or something, I'd say that makes sense because he got over on his hometown. WWE only tours there like once every few months, and at most in some cities, and once every year, and every few years in others, So it's sort of like it just disappoints the hometown crowd,
I think that Curtin did make a very good point that you should let your hometown people win every once in a while.
Yeah.
That I think it should not be a near guarantee that they win in their hometown. I think it should be like 50-50. They lose in their hometown sometimes, they win in their hometown sometimes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's like once in every 20 times they win in their hometown, which is a real issue.
Sure, but I think in this case it worked. I was a lot more optimistic about this match after witnessing the horror that was Miz versus Dean Ambrose.
I'm a lot on liking that, but
I think that it had elements that worked, as I said, but seeing Dean Ambrose in a 20-minute long match is not a way I want to start a show.
Yeah, but the mixed tag was good though, right?
Yeah. The mixed tag was an excellent match. Okay, so the story here was this, is that Rich Swann is trying to get revenge on the diabolical duo of Noam Dar and Alicia Fox for breaking Cedric Alexander's heart and possibly breaking his knee as well. So, Rich then drags in Sasha Banks into this feud because Sasha and Alicia have been feuding for the last month.
Yep.
So, naturally, a mixed tag match occurs where Rich Swann and Sasha Banks do a fantastic job. Alicia Fox actually does a decent job against Sasha. And Noam Dar is also here, and he doesn't screw up in his first pay-per-view appearance.
Yeah, he's not very good, but he didn't shit the bed. So
I think he was fine. You know, honestly, I did not have very high expectations for Dar. I mean, I know he's very much a work in progress at this point. Because he's only been on the main roster for what, 6 months now.
something like that. Also, it's funny you say work in progress because apparently that's where he did all his good work at.
Yeah, even in progress, he had some issues, but that was because of the fact that Dar's problem is very simple. Much like Cesaro and Sheamus, guess which crowds he's worked in front of? European crowds.
Yeah, it does take a hard time to a long time to adjust. I mean, I don't know how long it is comparatively to like Mexican workers, but from everything I've heard, and there's been some people like the original Sin Cara, Grand Metalik. It takes a while to adjust to working from Mexican audiences to U.S. audiences. So it wouldn't surprise me if European audiences were the same.
Yeah, and you have those situations, and Dar is not familiar with these type of crowds, so it takes a while to adjust for. It takes a while to adjust for the audience that you're playing against. Now, Fox is used to an American audience. She's worked with an American audience for years. Same with Sasha, same with Swan. So they're all used to it. Dar seemed very confused by this audience. He didn't realize what it took to get a reaction out of this crowd because he's used to a more lively English crowd.
Yeah. And honestly, the crowd wasn't terrible for this show.
Oh yeah, the crowd was not terrible for the show at all. It was actually a very good crowd throughout the entirety of this Extreme Rules.
Except for one match.
Would that be the Cruiserweight match?
Yeah, we'll get to that later. Good Lord, that was such a dead crowd.
Well, there was an understandable reason for that, but like we said, we'll get to that later. Okay, so let me think here. The mixed tag match was full of high energy. I love the Meteora to the outside that Sasha did.
Yeah, for as much stuff as I might have issues with Sasha's personality, how she's like gotten to on Twitter and stuff, I will never deny she is a hell of an in-ring worker.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing. They're using Sasha Banks correctly in this case to raise up the Cruiserweight division.
Yeah. Yep. Put those tiny lads on her back and watch her bring it up.
Yep. And honestly, I think it's the right call at this point because, like, the Cruiserweight division does need some help with getting people to watch the show, and we'll see where this goes from here. Yeah. So, after this was what we think here. Was the women's match next?
Yes.
Okay, I'll let you start.
First off, I'm going to have to apologize to everyone here because I feel like this is somehow my fault. I said this match would be pretty good if it was short, or at least decent, mainly because, pole matches aren't good usually. And, I thought it would be better if it was just, kept short. Those two had like, I don't know, like an 8-minute sprint. They beat each other up with a kendo stick back and forth. Unfortunately, I think WWE heard me and we're like, you want it short? You know what? That's a great idea. Let's have Alexa squash Bayley in 5 minutes, utterly killing her. I mean, that was just an extended squash. Not even an extended squash. That was just 5 minutes of squash. Bayley, this was like Joe utterly killing Paul Heyman. She said she was going to kill Bayley, and then she proceeded to kill Bayley. And I know Bayley wasn't very over. I mean, how Alexa got more cheers than Bayley.
Of course.
This whole situation is just messed up, man.
All right. Well, this situation might be messed up, but I think something can be salvaged from it. So
I hope something can be salvaged because it's not good.
It might not be good at this point, but it might get better later on. And the interesting point of this match, and first, I didn't mind it was 5 minutes long. I might be one of the few people on here who actually did not have any issues with this particular match. For me personally, I like Alexa Bliss, as has been documented in the past. I am not the biggest Bayley fan. But I generally do think that the match structure was okay. There were some issues, though. First, Bailey got a hold of the kendo stick first.
Mhm. Well, I think the first issue is the fact that she thought Alexa would just let her go up and get it. That's just stupid.
No, that was fine. That was completely in character for Bailey, and that was completely in character for Alexa because, Alexa thinks very lowly of Bailey at this point because, to be honest here, Alexa used to be Bailey's friend.
Yeah.
Until Bailey decided to support Carmella instead of her.
Yeah.
And look how that turned out.
Oh Lord. Yeah, I just think it's sort of like, I kind of figured based on the NXT stuff, I thought Bailey was a bit smarter than that.
Mhm.
Than thinking, she's saying, go ahead, take the kendo stick. I mean, there's being a trusting person, and then there's just blind, and then there's just being an idiot.
And I don't think Bailey is an idiot per se, folks. I mean, honestly, I think at this point, Bailey is in a situation where she's trying to be a good person. As I've said before, Bailey is a heel that is trying to be a good person, but she doesn't know how to. And for the last 4 years, she has been that good person.
Yeah.
And that's very important to note. 4 years. 4 years of playing the same gimmick to the same crowds, or actually now different crowds at this point, now that you're touring.
Yeah.
You gotta wonder how she feels about this gimmick at this point.
I don't know, man.
I mean, because what I saw out of her face was absolute dread, for starters. I think at this point she has gotten really tired of the gimmick. It is a limitation on her at this point. It's not. Look, I know creative screwed up this feud badly. Okay, that's why Dewey Foley is hanging from the ceiling like a pinata, and Alexa and Bailey beat him up with kendo sticks after this match.
Hopefully.
And that's why it's raining candy and sock puppets.
Oh, I can only hope. That's a hell of an image too. I hope that's what happened. If it isn't what happened, I think we've all failed.
Yeah, but honestly, the problem is creative didn't know how to write this feud. Bailey's character has become a weakness instead of a strength, and everybody wants her to be an underdog babyface. I said before, that's not the way to do this character with Bailey, because you're basically saying to the audience that is paying to watch your show, by the way, that, whoa, we've decided to reset this character back to the NXT days. And while they have done a soft reset with the character, it hasn't panned out.
Yeah, I think I agree. They wanted her to be an underdog babyface when I do feel like she should have come in more like how she ended at NXT, like climbed the mountain, conquered her demons, and she's here. She's ready to kick ass,
Mm-hmm.
I think part of the issue with wanting that is that a lot of people thought that if we bring her in as, as the underdog babyface, it'll still be the same just as good as it was in NXT, without realizing that the creative team at NXT was far better than the one on Raw.
Oh, I wouldn't necessarily say that they were far better, because once again, we're starting to see the weaknesses in Bailey's character and in her ability to cut promos. How is it that in her 4 years in NXT that she did not learn how to do good promos?
I think it's because she's just naturally not a very good speaker, and I think NXT knew that, and they had her do very, very few promos, and the promos they had her do, they were very short.
Well, why couldn't they have sent her to an acting coach then to at least improve her promos to the point of serviceable instead of nails on a chalkboard?
I don't know, man. Maybe they did, and she's really just that bad. I
mean,
honestly have no idea.
I have made this analogy before, and people actually confused it for, I compared Bailey to a college football quarterback transitioning to the pros.
Mhm.
NXT is the ultimate college crowd. They always cheer or they always boo, and they are always receptive of the various different acts under that brand that Triple H has created down in Isengard.
Yes.
The problem is that that brand is not indicative of the stuff that's going on the main roster. Everything about that particular show is not indicative of the main roster, and in fact sets everybody up to fall on the main roster unless your name is Elias Sampson, which
Yes.
you are a major success on the main roster.
Yeah. So I take it you're on the side that NXT, and in reference to Curtin Jerker's question yesterday, you're on the side that they should try and make NXT more like the main roster to better prepare them.
I don't think that they should necessarily make it the main roster. I think what they should do is that they should at least try to be a little bit more intelligent about where they have these shows at. If you continuously have a show at the same arena every single night, you're going to get the same crowd reaction from the same people.
And I think that's the biggest issue here.
Mhm.
We
It,
all treat NXT like this indicator of success when they're one crowd, and that one crowd can be very good, and hey, maybe they'll get it right, but there's so many different crowds. So
There are so many different variables to success in the pro wrestling industry that it makes it very difficult to make judgments as to whether a person will be a success or will be a major draft bust.
yeah,
Bailey is not, I don't think, a major draft bust at this point. I think her character and her personality is salvageable. The thing is that as we get back into this match, the problem is that Bailey is 6 feet tall and she's going against somebody who is 5 feet tall. The audience is going to react to this person like they are a heel because she has got a kendo stick in hand and she is wanting to beat up on this little girl.
yeah. She's half a foot taller than Alexa. She's 5'6". She's a bit taller than average. So
Yeah, she's massive compared to Alexa.
yeah.
So you have this, what looks like this literal giant brute is going against Alexa Bliss. And how is the audience going? And the audience will have the natural reaction to want to cheer for the little person because they're fighting against the big mean person.
Yeah. And I think that's an issue. I think them having Bailey hesitate with the kendo stick is an issue.
I don't think it's an issue because Bailey's natural character is a face. They're staying true to her actual character. That she is a good person who doesn't want to inflict harm upon others.
Yeah, I just feel like it's one of those things where it's like, again, I agree. I just think like they took a more nuanced character and they sort of oversimplified it a bit.
Sure, but the problem is the next problem is Bailey really doesn't have a purpose. She doesn't have a goal. I talked with my mom who watched this match and she went, what is Bailey's main goal? I said, to win a championship. That's too superficial, she said. But I said, well, she is supportive of the fans. That's too wide of a goal. That's not going to get anybody supportive of you.
Yeah. Whereas in NXT, the implication was that she wanted to be the best because she wanted to make people care more about women's wrestling.
Mm-hmm. But even that goal itself is too, what do we think here? Avant-garde, advantageous.
I think it kind of worked, although I think
the problem is that everybody is fighting for that same goal.
That's what I was going to say. When Bailey was doing it in NXT, it was more like her and maybe Sasha's goal.
Yeah, but
now it's everyone's.
Yeah, it's everyone's goal. Even in NXT, it was everybody's goal. It does not make sense to do it that way because that suddenly makes certain wrestlers seem more like villains because they're not doing that for that reason.
Yeah.
It basically makes a they versus them.
Yeah. I honestly, yeah, and we're seeing it now because, and I'll get into this more in the Lana rant I have coming up, pluggo, but that, this whole Women's Revolution thing has bred a certain subsection of fans who feels like if you can't go in ring, you are taking us back to the dark ages. There are certain fans who feel that for example, Alexa Bliss shouldn't have the title because she can't put on a 4-star match, despite the fact she's great at everything else, and
Yeah.
she's at least decent in ring.
Yeah.
And here's the biggest issue I have with that, and I've mentioned this in the daily. These are the same people who are cheering the hell out of Seth Rollins. And I don't want to be too mean to Seth because I have some nice things to say about him later, but when you feel that people shouldn't be in this company, shouldn't be wrestling because, they're not good and they're taking us back to the dark ages, and you're cheering for someone else who sucks in ring and psychology, you have an unrealistic standard for one group of them and not the other. Like, if you feel like, like the women and the men should be held to this high, unrealistic standard, I mean, you're probably going to end up being disappointed, but at least you're fucking consistent. That's all I want from people is consistency. And I feel like there's this subsection of fans who feel like you need to be like 4.5 star. You need to be the female version of Ric Flair or you don't belong. And that's bullshit.
That it's an obsessive compulsion to obsess over a person being the literal best because they feel as though, because they have been swept up by the passion of professional wrestling to such a degree that they literally do not see the forest from the trees.
Yeah. And I think I can break them into two different camps. There's the one camp who sort of quote unquote claim to be for women's wrestling, but they sort of put that unrealistically high expectations so they can be like, oh, see, women's wrestling is failing. We don't really need to bother with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this other group who genuinely want good women's wrestling and they genuinely care, but somewhere along the line, their expectations got shot up so high it became unrealistic.
So realistically, we're talking Shimmer fans here.
To a degree, yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, I get you want good stuff. I want good stuff for the women. Hell, it isn't even really on the women. I honestly feel like 97, like 90, at least 95% of all of the problems here are around presentation of them. Like going back to NXT, yes, Bayley's a terrible promo and she should have gotten more work on it, but at least in NXT, they tried to hide it.
I don't think that hiding the issue was going to solve it. Solving the issue is, I mentioned this before, iron sharpens iron.
Well, I get that, but, not everything can get solved overnight, so...
No, it's not a factor of solving it overnight. It's this factor of, you have Bayley down there for 4 years in NXT. Why did you not pair her with somebody who could sharpen her promo skills to a degree where, once again, I'm not looking for great. I'm just looking for serviceable here, that she can get through from segment A to segment B without making the crowd want to literally hate her.
Yeah, I do think that was an issue, but at the same time, back to my point, they should have done better in preparing them. I will agree with that wholeheartedly. But if you're not going to do that, at least hiding the weakness, I think that works better. Here, they don't do either. They don't better prepare them or better help them get better, and they don't hide their weaknesses. And I think that's a big issue. Like they're having Alexa go up against Nia and Mickie James and Dana. That's not helping anyone here because, and I like Alexa. We've said multiple times how much you like Alexa, how much I like Alexa. And I don't want to be mean to Dana and Nia. And, Mickey's probably the best out of all four. And even then, she's not the greatest. And that's a big issue because it's like, why are we putting all of these people in this match? This will probably not be good. You're not hiding their weaknesses. WWE, like, I feel like whoever's doing this, I don't know if it's Vince, I don't know if it's Dewey, I don't know who, they've heard that saying, exploit weaknesses, and use strength, to exploit weaknesses. Yeah, they took it. What they didn't realize is you're supposed to do that on your enemies, not your freaking people.
I do feel, though, that Alexa did a phenomenal job in the Bayley match. She really, really tried to get the crowd to boo her. The problem is that she's 5 feet tall and she's got an incredible amount of sympathy from people.
And she's great on the mic. She's I think Vidant said this, and it's not a perfect comparison, but I think like it's a better one. Alexa is sort of like The Rock in terms of in-ring to promo abilities. She's great on the stick.
Hmm.
I mean, and this is what happens when someone who has a great presence and can talk really well gets into a match with someone who they were coasting on her character off of NXT, coasting on how popular she was down there.
Hmm.
And this is what happens.
But yeah, but the thing is that Bailey's major issue at this point is that she does not have a goal, a stated purpose, a purpose that is believable to an audience, a purpose that is not just some wide goal that can be interpreted either negatively or positively by an audience. What we want is a positive reaction.
Yeah.
We want a positive reaction for Bailey, but the way she does it is that it suddenly becomes a negative reaction because she is negatively enforcing some stereotypes of, well, I'm the best person here. She has her character be egocentric and goes for the championship belt, when in reality, her character is best suited to helping others. If she had converted Alexa Bliss from the dark side of the wrestling force to the good side of the wrestling force, instead of this weird feud where basically Alexa calls Bailey a child about 1,000 times, it might have worked better.
This
If
whole
Bailey was helping Sasha, who was going to be feuding against Alexa in this particular match, then it might have worked better. But instead, what we got was Bailey's character is lost in the forest. And I think the best solution at this point for the problem at hand, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, maybe we should have a short heel run for Bailey so that we can establish her character finally. It's understandable. Continue, Sal.
Sorry, I'm just thinking. I don't think turning her heel is the best move. I think a better idea would be sit everyone down and determine a character for Bailey and determine some goals for her
Mhm.
as a face, like realistic stuff. I feel like that would work better because I just don't see. I think she could be a great heel. It's just I don't think we need any heels right now.
Well, we can turn the biggest heel we have on the roster right now face, because she's getting face reactions. And to your point about The Rock, I said this yesterday in our little planning in the planning room. A better comparison for Alexa would be Jake Roberts. Not the best in ring, great psychology, and great promos. Heck, she's even using the DDT as a finisher.
Yeah, she's got a great presence, and that's what happens, and I feel like part of the issue was they botched Bailey's rollout. They had her act like a little child when she came onto Raw with a backpack.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was stupid. They had Alexa run her down and call her a child constantly.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. I feel like, and I know Alexa didn't write that crap.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever had her say that, Dewey,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't make me want to see that match. That just makes me think, unless Bailey's winning in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Because having someone call someone else a child and how I'm going to kill you and how I'm going to beat you, and then they proceed to do that very thing, like, wow, look at this person who was called a child and beaten up constantly. Why should I ever care about them?
Mm-hmm. It's meant to garner sympathy for the character, but it didn't work in this case.
Yeah, because she got killed that bad. I feel like it would garner sympathy only if you're going over in the end. Like, I know this isn't a perfect comparison, but you remember that Booker Triple H Mania feud, right?
Oh yes, I remember that.
Yeah. The one where Triple H ran down Booker, rolled him down, did this, and this to him, got borderline racist at points. And the thing was, Booker was supposed to win in the end before Triple H pulled his BS creative control card.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you wonder what happened to Booker after that? He was still there. He won a World Heavyweight Champion, but he never reached that same height again.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what happens. You know, and that's how presentation can affect someone. I feel like if they were going to have Bailey lose, and they were apparently, Don't have Alexa run her down as a child.
Mhm.
You know, don't have her continuously beat her up.
Mhm.
I, you know,
I mean, in all honesty, like I said last week, Bailey was going to need a Hulkbuster to beat the
yeah.
Pixie Hulk,
Oh
and
yeah.
there was no Hulkbuster there.
Yeah. I'm not even saying Bailey should have necessarily won, just that, change the build up. You know, I feel like that's what they should have done, but
Oh, of course. And I think that we've made some really big headway into this whole women's division thing. And I feel as though that we're making some progress here. And I know that folks were expecting like a massive rant, but that's not how I roll with this stuff. I look at this logically and I go, all right, this is not working, but what are the problems and what are the possible solutions? I feel as though that sometimes we get into the situation, we'll get to this later because we still have SmackDown to talk about, and good lord, there are some issues on that side of the roster. But I think
Harry.
the solutions, I think, are things they're not really talked about very much. It's instead just continuous ranting about, oh, now this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Blame Vince, blame Vince, blame Vince, blame Vince. Yes, you're giving him more power. The more you talk about him, the more he gets, the more he lives, and the more that he is like Frankenstein's monster. He is absolutely unkillable at this point.
Oh God, I don't wish death on anyone because that's bad, but he really isn't dropping dead anytime soon, is he?
I think he might drop dead in the next year or two as long as people stop talking about the guy, or at least when they're talking about the issues that WWE has, mention creative, mention Triple H, mention everybody else around them because they are just as culpable about these issues as Vince
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Vince is used as the scapegoat 99.9% of the time because they know that, and Vince does not give a literal dang about anything that anybody says about him. He is
I,
so content with his life at this point that basically he is allowing the fans to strike lightning from above, and he's completely fine.
yeah. Well, I think people mostly blame Vince because the buck stops and ends with him,
Mm-hmm. Sure, but at the same time, I've also questioned the fact that Vince is this amoebic character that is like Chifulu himself, who controls everything without WWE. I know he is a control freak. I know he has obsessive compulsive disorder, but not everything that Vince is doing at this point is controlled by him. There are others involved.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm probably going to give Vince another year when I get into my rant, but I can't help it because I honestly feel this one is him based on his past, like based on past things that he's done. This one seems very Vince influenced. So,
Yeah.
although it might be Road Dogg, all things considered, I don't know, but I will get to the burying shortly.
Okay, so after that was the steel cage of deletion match between the Hardy Boys and Cesaro and Sheamus.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on this, Fizz?
I thought it was serviceable. Cesaro and Sheamus weren't really over with the crowd as either heels nor faces, although they were getting quite a lot of cheers from the audience because I think that they've realized that the Hardy Boys are old.
Yeah.
The Hardy Boys are old, unfortunately, folks. They are not the same youthful team that they were years ago. They are best as character actors, not as actual wrestlers. So let's see here. Dr. Frankenfurter and Igor, yeah, let's see if they can get that broken gimmick going because this match was okay. The psychology was decent. The crowd wasn't really there for this match, but that because it was a steel cage of deletion. The only way to win this match was via escape, which is okay. That's a fine stipulation in this case because it's a tag team match.
Yeah, I honestly felt that kind of hurt it a bit, mainly because they couldn't do as many spots as they wanted to because it would always be about trying to keep people in, But
yeah,
it could have been far worse. That's the match after this, I'm pretty sure. Oh no, it's two matches after this. Oh no, it is the match after this. Never mind.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I feel like there's not really a lot to talk about with this match
No.
because it did its job perfectly serviceable. Cesaro and Sheamus ended up escaping after Jeff Hardy pulled off the Swanton Bomb to end all Swanton Bombs.
Yep. And it cost them the match.
Yes, so this might lead to a future story with Jeff and Matt getting into one another's faces again because, Jeff is doing these high-risk spot monkey stuff, and Matt might possibly go further and further broken.
Yeah. Brother Nero, I thought we cured your spot monkey addictions.
Apparently, they weren't thorough enough with that. But the reason that this feud is slightly delayed is because Rebby Hardy is about to have a second child.
She did just give birth a couple hours ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Yep. Congrats to Rebby Hardy and her new son, Wolfgang.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. It was Wolfgang, I believe. I think. I can't remember. I'm almost certain it was Wolfgang.
Okay, so Wolfgang. We're going with Wolfgang at this point until we get further information.
Yes. Hold on. I'm almost certain it was Wolfgang. But yeah, my quick thoughts on the match. I thought it was pretty good. Mainly because it started very slow. Very slow. Very slow. And, it was not terrible, not great. And yes, it is Wolfgang. I got confirmation.
Great. Congratulations.
Yes. But, it was just back and forth, slow stuff. I felt like it picked up a lot at the end where they started doing some crazy spots. Got pretty good. I honestly kind of like the finish. I know some people felt that it made the baby faces look like idiots, but honestly, I kind of liked it because, these are the Hardys. This is what they're known for. And I feel like it sort of fits in with the nostalgia act thing where it's like they're trying to prove, nah, we can still go. We're not just a nostalgia act. And, it ended up costing them.
Yes, exactly.
So I think overall this was pretty good, but it could have been a lot better. It also could have been a lot worse, like our next match.
I actually enjoyed this match, but that was because of the miracle work that Neville was doing in it.
I will say, as far as in-ring goes, this is exactly what I expected. A fine, solid match I had already seen with no heat. Like, you want to talk about a dead crowd? Oh, my Lord. This crowd died several deaths during this match.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably the deadest crowd I had seen in a while because, and this is the thing, they were crazy for Apollo Crews versus Kalisto. Two guys who had a great match, but God bless their hearts, they aren't exactly getting the best crowd reactions every night. Or they hadn't been up until this point. And this crowd went crazy for them. This should show you how dead the division is. And, I know you've seen the urinating trees video on the Washington Capitals legacy of failure, right?
Yep.
There was a quote in there from the Capitals' first season. Incidentally, that 1974-75 first season of the Capitals, worst season in NHL history. There was a quote from the head coach or the GM. He said, I don't know what we're doing wrong, but we're doing something wrong. That's what I feel like WWE's wondering about the Cruiserweight division. They have no idea what they're doing wrong, but they're doing something wrong.
And honestly, I don't think that they're doing anything particularly egregious at this point, apart from the fact that people are complaining about the fact that, oh, this is just WWF style all over again. And I understand the whole presentation is key argument. I understand that argument perfectly, but at the same time, the Cruiserweight division and their matches, they're solid. They're good.
Yeah, I have heard a theory, I think Vid's been posting it, that actually separating them so much is hurting them because it makes them feel like they're not really a part of the show.
They are a part of the show.
Yeah, but it's like they're presented like as soon as you put those purple, it's more like they're disconnected from it. They're a part of it, but they're not really like in a group with it, I guess is the best way to put it. They're like a disconnected part.
Didn't folks want the cruiserweight division to be separate so that it could be its own brand and its own identity? That people have been yelling and arguing
Yes.
for this show for years and years and years on end. That I constantly heard people say that they wanted this show to be independent, that they wanted this show to be its own unique thing, that they wanted it to have its own special presentation with purple ropes.
Well,
So,
maybe not the purple roads, but yes. And I feel like then when we got it, I feel like it might not have worked too well.
So basically, it is like a child refusing to eat peas at dinner time.
I wouldn't say that. I would say it's like we thought it would work at the time, but given what we know now, I feel like we can all look back and say, yeah, that was a bad idea.
I think it's still a good idea. It's just, I think that people are not willing to be patient. Wrestling fans these days, and I know that I'm going to sound like a 50-year-old geezer when I say that, but where is the patience gone?
Have you seen all of the crap WWE's polls?
Sure, but everybody else is pulling the same kind of nonsense, and I'm not hearing people yell at the top of their lungs about it to the degree that they probably should.
Well, that's because people gave up on those promotions that poll them.
No, actually these promotions are still active.
Well,
We'll get into that. We'll get into that later, but like to go on a little bit of a site, actually we'll do that right now. A couple of promotions recently have been pulling some very devious tricks on people lately, which has made some people go very, very angry at them. For starters, 5-Star Wrestling in Britain tried to pull a nonsense with CM Punk.
Oh, Lord, that was stupid.
Which turned out to be a bad idea. Now, for context, folks, this was a promotion that wanted to do a 128-man tournament. They can no longer do so.
Those idiots thinking they're going to get 128 people and pay them all and then get CM Punk for $1 million on top of that. I mean, when I saw that, I knew it was bullcrap because one, 128-man tournament, that's going to cost a shit ton of money. Just booking all the damn guys. Two, $1 million for CM Punk. Okay, one, let's say you even could get all 128 million or 128 guys. Fine. Mm-hmm. That mil for CM Punk alone, you probably don't have that.
Yeah, he doesn't have $1 million. I think it was actually $9 million.
Yeah, it was just stupid.
Yeah, but to continue on, then we have What Culture Pro Wrestling crying poverty about... See, recently YouTube decided to do some restrictions on the pro wrestling content side of things. It has affected free promotions and many other smaller promotions, but the three main ones are What Culture Pro Wrestling that started last year, Beyond Pro Wrestling, and AIW.
Yeah.
Now, in the cases of Beyond and AIW, I can understand their grief about the situation because they heavily rely on YouTube ad revenue. However, What Culture does not have an excuse because these guys relied on YouTube for their main source of ad revenue. Mm-hmm. They relied on them, on their main source of income, instead of actually diversifying and actually bringing in investors to make sure that your product actually has the proper funding it needs so that it can continue going.
Yeah, I'm actually going to defend What Culture here. And here's the thing. I don't even like What Culture.
Yeah.
I don't like those guys, but here's the thing. YouTube changing that policy, I feel like, one, that was bull crap. Wrestling isn't really inherently violent, and they're just doing this to get... YouTube's just doing this to get more ad revenue themselves.
Of course they are. But it's understandable because advertisers at this point pays for the servers, pays for the site. Yeah. You know, they aren't running this for free because of the fact that, you know, out of goodwill or anything like that. They're running it because they need the money from these advertisers. And I can understand that. They're running a business. They're running a business properly. What Culture did not run their business properly. Instead of actually bringing in investors to your product and making sure that your shows are funded, not overspending for every ex-WWE and TNA cast-off that you could possibly fit under your roof.
Yeah. They did mess up in a few areas.
It's called running a proper business, and What Culture didn't proceed to do that. They instead relied on all these cheap tricks and gimmicks which leads us to promotion number 3 on this discussion, Wrestle Circus.
Okay. Wrestle Circus is weird.
It is a promotion run by a money mark. Unfortunately, he has decided after 7 or 8 shows to try and expand his reach far, far beyond his capabilities.
By crowdfunding a building.
Crowdfunding a building when your own main building doesn't have an AC that works correctly.
Yeah, and he said he wanted to do this because we outgrew our original venue. And I think Vidance put it best. If you need to crowdfund to get a new building, you have not outgrown your original building.
Yes, you have not outgrown your venue, and honestly, geez Louise, what is it with the Texas promotions and doing this kind of nonsense? Okay, first of all, folks, if for those of you who are listening to this podcast in the Texas area, you do remember World Class Championship Wrestling, right? It was one of the biggest promotions. It was one of the biggest promotions in the Dallas area in the 1970s and 80s. You want to know what killed it?
Fritz von Erich being a huge ass carny.
Yep. Carny tactics make Texans not want to go to your shows because they saw what happened. They have a long memory. They remember Fritz von Erich doing all this carny nonsense, the fake heart attacks.
I honestly don't think Carney's... Oh, no, Carney doesn't even describe it enough, man. He faked his dead son's signature on merch.
Yes. Well, that's a traditional Carney move, Sal.
I feel like that goes beyond just Carney, which is, I feel like Carney in a way is slightly endearing. Like, it's kind of scummy, but it's sort of like, oh, look at this little scumbag kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. This isn't endearing at all. This is just messed up. This is a man with no shame whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. And that's why he is dead and buried in the ground, because he died in 1994.
Yeah, and most of his kids are sadly dead. Most of them due to suicide, sadly.
It was a very unfortunate thing for the Von Erich family, but the problem is that, they apparently had an inherent gene. There are people who do have inherent genes for potentially suicidal behavior, and it also isn't helped when you're in the 1980s and you have one of the biggest drug crises happen in wrestling at the time.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have heard there are some genetics that can, I don't want to say cause people to commit suicide because that would be wrong. That's a vast oversimplification, but they can potentially lead to increased risks. I have heard that. I don't know how true that is or not. I'm not a doctor. I'll take some science's world at this. It doesn't help they might have had that. It doesn't help that their dad was a huge ass carny. It doesn't help that they were all on, that there was a bunch of drugs. Mm-hmm. They were in a perfect situation, unfortunately, to suffer a lot of tragedy.
Yep. And some of the deaths are mysterious, like the first Von Erich dying in Japan. That was a bit of a mystery death. I really do think it was that. In that case, I think it was because of an appendix injury. He had an appendix injury. He didn't know that he had burst his appendix, and he just died.
Yeah, there was didn't one of them die in a car crash, sadly?
No, he didn't die in a car crash.
He didn't?
I think you're thinking of the Junkyard Dog who died in 1998 in a car crash.
Okay, I might be thinking of that, but yeah. Anyway, the Von Erichs, and now Wrestle Circus is doing carny shit too. So
okay, you are in Texas. You are a promotion in Texas, a state that is trying to rebuild its wrestling scene after about 15 years of dormancy. And you pull carny nonsense on these people when you know that they are not going to be very receptive to this kind of behavior.
Yeah. They also, there was a thing going on with Matt Riddle that may or may not have happened. It's weird. They advertised Matt Riddle for a show. His wife said, I don't think he did. Then she said if he agreed to anything, it was a mistake. So it's sort of weird in that Matt might have accidentally agreed to a show, or they just went full carny and advertised Matt Riddle on a show he was never supposed to be there for.
Yeah. That's extremely... See, when you do that kind of shady, suspicious behavior, people start to take notice, and the alarm bells start ringing in the back of their head.
Yeah. And I mean, there's some stuff going on with them. I mean, and here's the thing. I don't want to be mean to these guys because they've apparently put on some pretty decent cards according to Rev.
Mm-hmm.
God bless Reverend Kane. That man is just such a great thing we have on the site on Cage Side Seats. To steal CJ's shameless plug for a minute, I don't think he'd mind. You're a one-stop shop for all things pro wrestling related.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Rev is like such a great guy to have on the site because you want to find anything on indies, this is your man. The dude is like a sage of wrestling.
Yep. He does his Sermon on the Mat articles every week on the site, and they are the best thing to read on the site. And technically, that one-stop shop line, I think I've actually said that multiple times on Speaks.
Well, maybe it's a stealing chain. Who knows at this point? Also,
it doesn't matter to me, because like if you want to use the line, go ahead. Go right ahead, man.
Yeah. And also, while we're giving a shout out to indie wrestling, I got to give a shout out to our good friend, it's 999 Maggle, who just started taking over the ROH TV
Recaps.
Yeah. And I read his first one. It was actually a very, very good read. I'd recommend everyone read it if they haven't already.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's a nice guy, so it's nice to see him stepping up and taking over something that, you know, sadly not everyone really could. So.
Yes, he's going into the sea that is Ring of Honor. May God bless his soul, or whatever religion that you worship. Bless his soul, because he's getting into Ring of Honor.
Yeah. But
good Lord. Yeah. So yeah, this is basically. It seems like every week for this, you know, people raging about this, that, or the other thing, and. Yeah. And we had this case of these 3 different promotions having all of these sort of issues this week in the world of professional wrestling. And after that was, of course, there was this Neville Austin Aries match. Now, Sal, you did give your thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so my thoughts are a little bit different on this match. I thought it was actually really good. It was a really great showcase of Neville and his ability to interact with the crowd. Yeah. It was also a horrific showcase for Austin Aries at his very worst.
Yeah. Austin was not good in this at all.
Oh my God. How is it that TNA is the only promotion to get anything out of Austin? He was terrible in Ring of Honor. He's not done very well in WWE so far. Look, I get it. It's age. I know he's 37 years old or something like that. But at the same time, I was screaming at the TV, Austin, put some effort into it for once.
Yeah. He wasn't very motivated, you know.
And I know people are going to say, well, it's because of the fact that the Cruiserweight division is being treated poorly by WWE. Chin up, put some effort into it. You're not helping your cause here, Austin, by putting on a really poor match.
Yep, and to anyone who claims that, just a counterpoint, AJ Styles in New Japan. Whenever he was in those mid-card tag matches, he could have said, fuck it, I'm phoning it in. He didn't, and that's why he's great, and nearly every match he's in is amazing.
Yeah, he did great. He's done great on SmackDown on TV matches. This guy puts in the effort. Yeah, that's the key. Effort.
He got a good match out of Dolph fucking Ziggler. Sorry, teammate. You know, but and that's the thing. You want that effort. And it's not like, and hell, it isn't even like he would have to carry his opponent here. He's going up against Neville.
Yes, Neville, who has been the biggest star of the Cruiserweight division and has been the guy that has been carrying the division for the last 100+ days that he's been champion.
Yeah, about 4 months now. You know, and yeah, it's...
Oh my goodness, where did this go wrong? Because, like, okay, the first 2 matches were good, and then this match happened, and I don't know where the motivation for Austin went, because basically Neville was carrying around a 50-pound sack of flour for the entirety of this match.
Yeah, it was just bad, man. I mean, like, I get the most I could say for it is it was technically sound. It was decent.
Neville was amazing in this match.
Yeah.
Austin was basically turned into the Cruiserweight version of Dean Ambrose for this match. Horrific selling, inability to engage in the crowd. What happened here?
I don't know. But, you know.
Yeah. This match...
It's over, though. It's over. This feud is over, thank God.
And I think Neville is moving on to either Akira Tozawa or somebody else.
Yeah, okay. Hopefully, I don't think it's going to be Tozawa because they rescued Tozawa from this apparently sinking ship.
Hmm.
Like whether it should be sinking or not, it's sinking.
I think the cruiserweight division is doing fine at this point. I know that people are going to disagree with that, but
I mean more in, I mean more in,
patience.
yeah, I mean more in crowd reactions. It's sinking, not like an actual in-ring work.
Yeah.
They and here's the thing, and this is a paradox we've entered. Somehow, Akira Tozawa entering a lower mid-card feud on Raw is better than being in like the upper echelons of the cruiserweight division.
And also, we got to see. Well, I thought the biggest positive was Neville was once again ending TJP.
Yes, and I'm hoping this doesn't turn into a feud with TJP, and it was just them tying up that loose end.
We'll
Because
see.
if they think they're going to make babyface TJP a thing, someone needs to smash whoever head it is into a door and tell them how stupid it is.
Hello, Dewey.
Yeah, Dewey, Vince, Road Dogg, Jimmy Jacobs, whoever.
Mhm. So, after the highs and lows of Extreme Rules and some side tangents we talked about, we move on to our main event, which was fantastic. Was the
Yes.
best match on this card. I did not think that for once a WWE main event would actually be the best match on this card, but here we are. We are in a
Hell.
paradox world, as Sal said.
Yeah, hell, I never thought of multi-man match with Seth Rollins, Bray Wyatt, and Over the Hill Samoa Joe would be the best match on the card.
But we forgot that Samoa Joe is a ring veteran. Bray Wyatt does well in these multi-man matches, as he demonstrated in the matches with the Shield. Finn Balor is actually doing really well.
Yeah, Finn was a down. I'll get into it later. I wasn't the biggest fan of the ending, but I'm coming around to it. But he was great in this match. Seth, and here's the thing: for as much as I've buried Seth over the past few weeks, months,
I don't feel like you really have buried Seth very much compared to what I do, but continue.
as much as we've buried him or I've buried him, I'm gonna be honest. I'm nothing if not a fair man. He was good in this match. It helped that he didn't have to do any selling. It helped that he didn't have to do any psychology and he was taken out for most of it. But this is where his style of just do moves to do cool moves works. And a spot fest multi-man match, and what do you know? It worked. Bray Wyatt was actually decent. It was actually pretty good in this, killing people with Samoa Joe. Roman, he did great. His stuff at the beginning, that was great. He did good work. Finn did great work. He was a babyface House of Fire, and then he, I still think him taking the fall was a bit of a mistake, if only because I don't trust this company enough to think that it might not be indicative of a larger problem down the line.
I think Finney is going to be fine.
I'm hoping he is. I think at the end of the day,
Finn is Irish, dude. Vince is Irish. He likes Irish. Okay. This is basically a smaller version of Sheamus.
Yeah, I think he will be fine. It's just I'm worried because their track record doesn't inspire confidence.
Track record for non-Irish individuals.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I'm sure in a couple of weeks I'll be like, yeah, no, this is fine. Either that or I'll be totally right, but this will be one of the few times where I'm hoping I'm wrong. So, but yeah, no, this match was great. Back and forth, a lot of great stuff. Finn had his God mode babyface run, and then Joe put up the coquina clutch on him, and, he didn't tap. That's one thing I did like. He didn't tap. It's just, he got choked out. So
yes, he literally turned purple.
yeah. So, it was a good match.
Okay, so my expectations of this match were particularly low because Seth Rollins was in it.
Same.
Now, let me start things off by saying, you had one job, Seth. I predicted that Seth Rollins was going to be the one to come out of this victorious, either him, Roman Reigns, or Finney McRogue. Instead, it was Samoa Joe who was pick 4 on my list of people. Sorry, Bray, I do like you, but I didn't think you were going to win this match.
Yeah, I don't think anyone did.
Even I, Mr. Optimist Pessimist here, was going to not pick Bray in this particular case.
Yep.
So what happened is that we had a match with Finn Balor, or whatever you say his last name, was actually really great in this match. Bray Wyatt was serviceable in this match. He did his spots incredibly well. Samoa Joe was a house of fire who destroyed everything in his path.
Yep.
Seth Rollins did not screw up, which was a major positive, especially since this is the first match, main pastor pay-per-view match back for Finn Balor since the incident at SummerSlam last year.
Yep.
And you saw everybody in that ring was giving Seth the cross eyes at that point of,
Yep.
Please do not screw up this time, Seth. Please do not injure any one of us in this match.
Yep. Samoa Joe, I honestly feel like Samoa Joe structured this match out since, he was going around doing most of the stuff, and it was great. He structured it great. It was a fun-ass match,
And then we reached the beloved Roman Reigns. Yep. And oh my goodness, he was the fantastic heel in this match.
Yeah, he did more or less sort of work heel, maybe tweener, like I don't give a fuck about any of you. I'm just gonna kick all your asses, So
I just got my merchandise paycheck in the mail today.
Big merch, yeah, it was great. And
I'm gonna murder your thaves now.
Yeah. And he proceeded to murder people. It was great. He went back and forth with Joe and Seth and Finn and Bray and everyone, and I mean just fun, man. And I feel like this is the sort of thing we need more of. We need more fun multi-man matches that have a good spot fest and have good structuring, which this did.
Also, to counterpoint one thing you said, Seth actually did sell. Unfortunately for Seth, it was due to the one mistake he did make, which was accidentally to himself. During that table spot, when Seth jumped off like the grace of an eagle, but then crashed down like a refrigerator with wings.
Yeah, he sold a little bit on his knee, but it was so minor I didn't mind.
Well, actually, he sold a lot on his knee because he accidentally crashed his kneecap right into the edge of the table.
Oh, yeah. See, I'm not sure if he was selling that or if that was like, I don't know if that was an actual injury, though.
I don't think it was an actual injury. I just think it was just basically that was just a moment of pain. Because as many knee braces as you can put on that leg, Seth, if you hit that thing on something hard, it is going to hurt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I can attest to that. I once banged my kneecap on the corner of a cement step when I tripped going up it. It hurt. It sucks.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, it got me right under the kneecap, man. Like I was actually lucky it didn't hit it straight on. It still sucks. So
yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, God dang it, Seth, why didn't you win this match? Because instead of Seth Rollins getting sacrificed to Brock Lesnar for the Beef Jerky Championship of Champions, it is Samoa Joe, who might actually pull off a really good match with Brock at WWE Bonfire. Yes, yeah. I am still refusing to say the name of this actual pay-per-view.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Going after the match ended, I was a little skeptical it would be good. Then Monday Night Raw happened. And on that Raw, there was a segment. A segment where Paul Heyman and Samoa Joe had a promo. And then this promo, Paul Heyman put over Samoa Joe as the one man who doesn't fear Brock Lesnar. He's jealous of Brock. He doesn't fear him. And that bugs Paul.
Yep.
He's looking forward to it. And that bugs Paul. And Paul actually put Samoa Joe over, and it was a good promo on Paul's end. And then when it ended, Samoa Joe did something beautiful. He quietly, just off the mic, like it was like he didn't speak into a mic, but it was so the camera mic could quietly pick him up. He said, I'm so disappointed Brock didn't come. So I want you to deliver a message to him. I want you to tell him how bad this felt, how much pain you were in before you fell unconscious. He proceeded to tell Paul Heyman how he was going to hurt him, how he was going to kill him. He then did it. And it was beautiful. And it made me look so forward to this match.
Yes, and animal rights activists were screaming at the top of their lungs because Samoa Joe just strangled a seal.
Yes, he strangled a seal or a walrus, take your pick, but my lord. And it was so good. Even Gabe Sapolsky, the head booker of Evolve, was like, I wish I came up with it.
It was a great segment by two people who haven't really had a lot to work with lately. Samoa Joe just basically busy murdering Seth Rollins, and Paul Heyman reiterating the same promo over and over again for 2 years now.
Yep. I think Paul was really great here. It was a similar promo to the one he's been cutting, but I feel like he varied it up enough to where it works.
Yeah.
You know, and it was great.
Yes. Samoa Joe looks like a killer. Brock has reasons to get revenge on Joe now because,
Yep.
again, he basically killed his teleportation device.
Yeah.
See, my crazy theory here, folks, and this is something that has actually been sort of kind of confirmed by the ECW mutants that I've talked to, or actually they've actually believed in my theory, which is odd, is that Paul Heyman is actually an ancient wizard.
It would not surprise me.
Mm-hmm. And that he is able to summon Brock Lesnar using the power of his phone, which actually is actually his magical wand that he has converted to cellular, because all wizards nowadays use cellular phones instead of magic wands.
Oh, like Power Rangers Mystic Force. I got you.
Yeah. I mean, let's think about it for a second. His original phone was this ginormous cell phone.
Yes.
80s brick cell phone. That is a big enough thing to hide a magical wand in, by the way.
Yep. And over time, as it's advanced, he's just sort of just made it smaller and to put it in the phone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like that. I also love how Brock's contact is just Brock in all capital letters.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Summon Brock Lesnar.
Yep. Yeah. And no, it was great. So, that was a great segment and it's got me hyped. They should just have those two. It should be a lot like the Roman Joe match or the Roman Brock match at 31 for Joe Brock. So
it will be a really, really fun match. So Extreme Rules was really fun. Now let's dig into the SmackDown side of things, because next week after that is Money in the Bank. Yep. So first we'll talk about the other women's segment on this show, which is the one you've been waiting for, folks.
I'm actually going to save this to the end. Before I go on a full-out burying spree, I want to give the recognition to the two really good segments on this show.
Okay.
First, we had Mojo Rawley,
who was amazing.
Yes. Now, we talked about how Joe had his quiet off-camera moment that was great, and it was full of a heel. Here on the opposite side of the coin, we had Mojo Rawley in the backstage segment talking to Shane. This was a great babyface promo, but it was unlike many babyface promos, because many babyface promos tend to be very loud and very passionate and very rah-rah. I'm going to go get him. I'm going to go get what's mine. I'm going to make him pay. Something like that. Here, you had Mojo Rawley, who was quiet, who's like, look, I'm sick of being overlooked. I want my shot. I want to prove myself. I won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal thinking it would help my career. And it hasn't. And all I want is my shot. This was the babyface fire in a quiet, controlled form that seemed almost like a quiet fire that you kind of like, this guy's ready to go somewhere. This guy wants what's his, and he's not going to let anyone stop him. And it's so good, and so few people can pull it off.
Mm-hmm. I think many people have been greatly underestimating Mojo Rawley. The only person that has really fully supported Mojo since his debut on NXT has been Things and Stuff. She is an amazing talent scout, because she finds the people that oftentimes we as wrestling fans who are so into the things that we love, we tend to overlook those people and say, oh, they're also there. They'll be gone from the roster in a year and a half.
Yep.
She saw Mojo Rawley. She saw his fire, and she saw his ability to make a crowd care about him. Something that we often overlook in this whole jaded world of professional wrestling.
Yep. And this was great. A lot of people are seeing Mojo as world champ material now, and I'm not quite there yet. I think he definitely has some potential there, and I honestly could see him being world champ material. I just need a little more. I see him at least solid upper mid card right now, but I could very well see him being world champ material, because this guy is great. He has a lot of upside. He's only 30. He has a great look. He can talk.
Yeah.
I mean, this promo proved he can talk. He can connect with people. I mean, this promo I feel cemented. Like he was already doing good since February and going up into the build up to the Andre.
Mm-hmm.
This just really cemented it and said, yeah, this is a guy we should all keep our eyes on a lot more now. This is a guy who has a crap ton of potential, who is going places if WWE gets behind him and pushes him right.
Mm-hmm.
This is someone who is great, and I'm sure things and stuff will be happy because you know what? You were right. You saw something in your boy before a lot of us did.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure she's happy we're all seeing it now. And, kudos to Mojo. You had a hell of a segment, man.
Yep.
And the other good segment before I get into my outright burial was the Fashion Files and the New Day.
Ah, yes, these two.
Yes. Now it started with the New Day going to see the Fashion Police, Breezango. They entered in and it turned all black and white, and they had that whole joke with like, we're black and they're white, and because the New Day are all African American for those who don't watch wrestling. And it was a little corny, but it was still funny. The New Day are challenging the Usos.
And the New Day needs info on the Usos since the Usos have become this monster heel tag team.
Yep. And they went to Breezango because, well, the Fashion Police just finished a feud with them. And they said, look, we have something in it for you too. And they gave them man rompers. Fandango at first threw us down a few times saying, look, we're not dirty cops. We don't accept bribes. And then he saw Breeze wearing his and he's like, that looks really good. We're in. And they just gave them all the info.
Mm-hmm.
The other great thing about this segment was the fact that, well, only Tyler, Breeze, and Fandango can hear their inner monologues.
Yes, the New Day cannot hear that.
No, and it was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all like, wait, you're just looking at us. Is that a yes? Is that a no? And they're like, wait, you can't hear us? Like, this is, again, I have no idea what's happened, but between this and the Miz stuff, WWE comedy is working.
It's working for once.
Yeah.
No wonder pigs are flying outside my house again.
Seriously, I have no idea what happened, man, but it's so good. I love it to death. It's working. These two are great. The Usos had another great Uso Coke promo.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean,
they don't care that the New Day is now here on SmackDown. They're going to beat them up just as badly as they've beaten up Breezango.
Yep. And I love their little catchphrase. It ain't paranoia, it's the Usos.
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
Boom.
So great. And, there was a pretty good AJ Dolph match. AJ got his win back. Jinder unfortunately beat Mojo after all the good Mojo did, but, it makes sense, unfortunately. I'm really hoping they get behind Mojo and start getting him ready for the U.S. title at least, and then get him for the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
But we can go from there. But yeah, there was some good stuff on this SmackDown. There was some bad stuff. And here comes the bad stuff.
Okay, I'm just going to mute my microphone so that you can go full rant here.
Okay, where to start with this? Well, let's start with the segment itself. I missed the beginning of this because I was watching the Tigers. I think they won that game. Anyway, so when I turned it in, there was all 6 women. You had Naomi, you had Becky, you had Charlotte, you had Natalia, you had Carmella, and you had Tamina. Naomi is the SmackDown Women's Champion. The other 5 are in the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match, all waiting for an assignment, all standing around there. Shane unveiled the new Women's Money in the Bank briefcase. It was great. Very great looking. White with the gold. It was a very nice looking briefcase. And then out came the one woman who hadn't debuted yet on SmackDown Live, Lana. Now, Lana, I've had some things to say about before, and I will have some things to say in a bit. But she started by asking to be put in the Money in the Bank ladder match. Everyone looked at her and laughed because what the hell, 1, you've never really wrestled a match on the main roster since WrestleMania 32. That was over a year ago, and you were in a multi-person. 2, are you serious? You just got here. So they're all laughing at her. And then she went up to Shane and thinly veiledly said, look, you put me in the match and I'll probably have sex with you. you know, to a married man. A married man who is in a position of authority. Just like when I buried Seth for insinuating his boss wanted to sleep with him, I'm burying her for this. You would never do that to your boss because you would get fired because it's disrespectful and because it's stupid.
And because it's also sexual harassment as underlined under the various different... It's underlined under workplace harassment in most companies, folks.
Yeah, this is just stupid. You know, so that was whatever. She got laughed out of the room and they all said no. So, you know, I'm thinking, all right, that's fine. That'll be good. Then we had a 6-woman tag match between Natalya, Tamina, and Carmella against Naomi, Charlotte, and Becky. And Lana came back down to the ring and took out Naomi. Naomi then got pinned, and we went away. Later, Naomi went up to Shane and said, look, I want Lana at the pay-per-view. And Shane's like, no, this is a bad idea. Don't do this. Don't do this. And Naomi's like, screw it. I'll even put my title on the line. And apparently the match was made, and now Lana, she's not getting put in Money in the Bank, thank goodness. No, it's even worse. She's getting put into a women's championship match. Now, there's 4 different ways I'm going to attack this. 1, on the person who plays Lana, CJ Perry. 2, on Lana, the in-ring worker. 3, Lana, the character. And 4, Vince McMahon et al., whoever writes her character. So it's more like 3.5. We'll start with CJ Perry, the person. A weight-shaming piece of shit who thinks she's far better than she really is and is hated by nearly every woman backstage. She should not be in this fucking match. 2, Lana, the in-ring worker. Lana, who has worked some matches down in NXT, I have no idea if she's any good or not. Her last main roster match was at WrestleMania 32 where she did 1 move. That's it. And in addition to this, there was speculation that Lana actually faked an illness earlier so she wouldn't have to bump. I don't know how true it is, but it did seem to be the case because she was projected to be a wrestler far before this, and then it mysteriously went away after she somehow had an illness, and yet now somehow
Injury
she can.
in this case.
Or an injury. I don't know. Yet somehow she's now fine, even though it was supposedly a chronic injury. Which, again, stupid, shouldn't be in this, not deserving. Especially since this will be her first, unless, even if being extremely generous and saying she has a match this week on SmackDown, this will be the match at Money in the Bank will be her second singles match if that happens, and it likely won't, so it will be her first. No. Now for points 3 and 4, which are intertwined. I mentioned this briefly with you, Fizzy, but this is Lana's character for those who don't know. A sexy, seductive dancer type, like chair dancer, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Which, in today's era of women's wrestling, is stupid. And here's why. I could see this sort of working. She's pretty much a New Day Sable. And back then, Sable was a woman who sole character trait was sex appeal. And that's it. And that's what Lana is. And even then, I could sort of see that working for a few reasons. 1, it was the 90s. We were backwards and primitive, and we didn't know any better, sadly. 2, the internet really wasn't that big of a thing yet, and we didn't really have easy access to all the porn we do now. And that's the thing here. Vince wants to go back to the 90s, and here's why we really don't need it in our wrestling. We have the internet. We have so much easy access to so much porn, we don't need it. I mean, think about it. Really think about it. What does putting sex appeal in wrestling do? What does it really do? All it does is tease you. You're never going to get anything. Like, even if you were into the stuff, you're not going to get anything. So all it does is tease you without any payoff. It's stupid. It discredits all of the other women there because they're trying to be taken seriously and not as just lumps of meat. It's stupid. And her character shouldn't be like this because it discredits everyone else. You know? They've fought hard to make it so they're more than just lumps of meat who are sex appeal. Lana's character coming in like this is stupid because it undoes a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
The most I can praise it for is that at least she's being positioned as a heel. But even then, the crowd fucked that up because they said, we want Lana because they're easy and idiots. And I'm usually against burying crowds, but no, you don't want Lana. You don't want this because this will only send women's wrestling backwards. If Vince or whoever books this thinks they can get away with it, they will try. And we don't need that. You want to get off? Go on the internet and find porn. Hell, you want wrestling porn? I'm sure there's some parodies of wrestlers doing porn there. You can find this. We don't need it in our wrestling because we want this shit taken seriously or to be fun, like in the case of Breezango and stuff. We don't need them to be all sexy. I mean, the best you could hope for is sort of like a Nikki Bella situation where it's like, yeah, you want to think I'm just a piece of meat? Well, screw you. I'm much more than that.
Yes, then she unveils the Bella Hammer and everybody dies.
Yeah, that's the best we can hope for in terms of using like sex appeal and sex in terms of a character.
And heck, Nikki actually wanted to change her entrance when she came back, but because it's so intertwined into her character, she wasn't able to do so.
Yeah, because they wouldn't let her, even though she said, no, this is stupid. I want to be taken seriously. You know, and that's the thing. It's not good. We have friends in the daily, like people like the Fighting Irish. She's a huge fan of women's wrestling and she wants to be taken seriously. Do you know how much this sucks for her?
It is very, very bad at this point.
Yeah. The best thing that we can hope for is Naomi to come out on next Sunday and crush the ever-loving crap, squash Lana, and end this.
Oh my goodness. I have never seen you rage as badly as I've seen you rage about this Lana segment.
Yeah, because it was everything bad combined.
Yeah.
You know, it's unnecessary considering the technology we have and everything else we can do.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we don't need this in our wrestling. We don't need sex appeal in wrestling. Hell, I'd argue we really don't need sex appeal in movies either. I don't get people are like, well, sex sells, sex sells, sex sells. No, the sex you put in just teases, and then people go home and look at porn.
We could probably also qualify this on the men's side of things, which is why,
yeah,
to go into a little bit of a side tangent here, this is why I've never been a big fan of Joey Ryan, the wrestler.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Joey Ryan, the person. The wrestler character does not interest me.
Yeah. I could see some people saying, well, he does it tongue-in-cheek, so it's a little better. Like, if he played it 100% straight, I'd definitely agree, and I don't really care for Joey Ryan's character myself. You know, but at least I can see how some people are like, he's making a complete mockery of it, so I find it kind of funny, which,
yeah,
all right.
I'm bringing in a male comparison as well, because Joey Ryan has basically got a similar gimmick to Lana's.
Yeah, the only difference is, again, he plays it for laughs. He does not play it straight.
Okay, so that was your thoughts on the Lana thing?
Pretty much, yeah. Completely unnecessary, shouldn't be happening, has a risk of sending women's wrestling back decades. You know, it's just, like I said, there are people who have unrealistic expectations, and then there's me who's like, I want them to be treated equally to the men.
Oh, yes, certainly.
That's all I want. I want them to be given, like, at least similar presentation, if not the exact same. Like at least come within a few percentage points of how good the men get presented. You know, and I'm not saying the men get the greatest presentation because good Lord knows, just look at the cruiserweights. Good Lord knows, just look at some of the other divisions, but still they're better than this. They're better than being treated like sexy lumps of meat. You know, and I mean, it just sucks.
Of course.
Because women's wrestling, like, you have such good talent there. I mean, we went down the talent. There's actually a lot of talent in these divisions, Fizzy.
Yep.
And who I don't know if it's Vince, I don't know if it's Road Dogg, I don't know if it's Dewey, I don't know if it's Jimmy Jacobs, I don't know if it's any of the other people in charge. Someone on here doesn't want it to be that way. My money is Vince, mainly because I feel like he knew Sable was a drawback in the 90s, and he seems to be going back into his 90s nostalgia phase with all of the Cartman references. So I think he's trying to get back to that, and that's why I'm thinking it's Vince. I don't know for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me. And that's the thing, someone's trying to get back to the 90s and thinking, oh yeah, wrestling was big then, this will be great, without realizing we've moved on.
Mm-hmm. See, like I said before, I think everybody is culpable in this particular instance because you basically have said, okay, they've been pushing and pushing for this type of gimmick to come back onto the main roster. I mean, the first person that they actually had this gimmick for was Emma.
Well, actually, first it was Ava Marie, then it went to Emma, and now it's Lana. They pulled the plug on Emma because they felt she couldn't do it, and I was like, thank God it's gone away.
Actually, Emma objected to the gimmick.
Yeah, Emma objected to it because she's smart and she knows, wait, no, this is fucking stupid. We shouldn't do this.
Even though I do have to bring out a counterpoint here, her entire gimmick is basically look at me.
Well, yeah, but at least it's better than I'm going to fuck you. I'm just a piece of meat. I mean, the look at me thing is more egotistical and vain rather than sexual in nature.
Although her entrance does nothing to, to disillusion from that particular thought process, though, unfortunately.
Yeah. But, it's just, it's so bad. And the women deserve better. Naomi deserves better. Charlotte deserves better. Becky deserves better. Natalia, Tamina, Carmella, they all deserve better. Everyone on the Raw women's side deserves better.
Okay. So I will now break down this segment because I feel like this is like the Bailey Alexa segment. I feel this is important to break it down into these many different components. First, WWE needs to make back their investment on Lana. Lana signed in the company in 2012. She has been an okay manager at best for Rusev and has also become a big detriment to Rusev's career at this point by being a ginormous anchor in the feuds that Rusev has attempted to have.
Yeah.
The case being the Dolph Ziggler, Summer Rae, Rusev extremely weird love triangle thing that they tried to do a few years ago.
That she put the kibosh on when she leaked to TMZ they were engaged.
Yeah, that ended up happening, and that made quite a few people very angry.
Yeah.
So basically, as Sal said, Lana has managed to peeve off a lot of people on the main roster, although I do think to a degree that her tactic of making as much money as she can, then getting out after 5 years is a tactic that is understandable. She has basically a cheerleader's mindset to this whole deal. She is a former Florida State cheerleader.
Yeah.
When she was in the proud Soviet Socialist Republic of Gainesville, Russia.
Gainesville, Russia. I like that.
Yeah. So anyway, she was brought in as the manager to Rusev because Rusev's English skills weren't the best at that point.
Yeah, they've gotten a lot better.
Yeah, it had gotten a lot better, but at the same time, they needed a manager for, and this is the double-edged sword that people demand. People demanded that managers return to the wrestling circle in WWE in particular. People demanded that the women's division be showcased as a special division, much like the cruiserweight division was. Some people did. Others wanted it to be treated the same as the men, as Sal said.
Yep.
We now have a clash of the titans. We have the old way of thinking of women are basically our sex appeal, and it's also not been helped by the fact that it seems to me that the sex appeal level of women's wrestling has gone through the roof for whatever reason in recent years. I know that people are going to say, well, it's women's empowerment, that they're empowering themselves. They're empowering themselves to wear outfits that look like that they're about to fall off and accidentally give little Jimmy or Susie their first accidental glimpse at a person's cleavage.
Yeah. I don't know how much of that is WWE or not.
I see it on the independent scene. I see all of these people, and I'm not trying to be prudish, folks. I understand that if you want to wear this sort of ring gear, that you're entitled to do it because you want to do it yourself. But at the same time, if you're going to an all-ages show, maybe be a little bit more conservative. Not much, just saying that because some families are going to not see it the same way that folks in the wrestling biz do.
Yeah.
And especially in very religious areas that are trying to rebuild back. Because the thing is right now is that wrestling is in a rebuilding phase. Remember the antics of Wrestle Circus? They're doing it in front of the Texas crowd, which is not happy about these carny type of antics. In other areas of the United States, there are a lot of conservative individuals. So they're not going to be particularly happy if somebody shows up basically wearing a stripper's costume.
Yeah.
You know, Maria Kanellis can get away with that because she's a manager. And that her character is defined as a manager who uses her sex appeal as a weapon against her opponents. In Lana's case, she doesn't have anybody to manage. She is trying to be a wrestler, which has caused many people to rage incessantly into the moonlight. Whereas I've sit back and watched this and go, okay, this is going to work one of several ways. Either A, Lana wins the title and the earth explodes.
Yep. The worst scenario.
Naomi keeps the title and squeezes Lana to the point where Lana literally explodes into pieces like a Barbie doll.
The best scenario.
Or somewhere in the middle, Lana debuts a bodyguard and there is a disqualification finish.
Which hopefully doesn't happen either. I want this to fail so bad. I want Lana to fail so bad.
And, you know, I feel at this point it's a wait-and-see game. They have the women's Money in the Bank briefcase match, which could lead to several outcomes happening. And we'll get to that in episode 15 a little bit more when we get to it next week. But I generally do feel as though that they have a plan in place that I don't necessarily think that Lana's going to win the championship because Lord knows they're not. I mean, they do swerve finishes, but if Lana does win the championship, and hopefully the earth doesn't explode, that the person who wins that briefcase match is going to cash it in on Lana.
That's actually sort of my fear, in a way. I feel like that WWE would do this. They'd have Lana win and then have Charlotte cash in. Instead of, just sticking with Naomi, who's still over and is a good babyface still. I mean, I'm not saying Charlotte's bad. It's just you want to have Naomi lose it, at least use someone other than Lana for the love of God.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the conundrum that we face in the world of professional wrestling. Everybody's trying to do all these different kinds of ideas and seeing if it sticks. It's like throwing a dart at a dartboard and hope it hits the bullseye. But in this case, we don't want it to hit the bullseye. We want it to miss completely and accidentally hit a bar patron in the back.
Yes, we want it to fail so spectacularly that it will never be tried again.
Or at least in Sal's case, because I think under the right circumstances, because the problem is in as we talked about with the Bayley Alexa match, the presentation here was very off. Lana is not a good actress. She is basically, I've compared her to basically a deranged fan fiction artist. People try to treat the Lana character seriously. During her time with Rusev, whereas I thought of her as just somebody who writes Vladimir Putin fan fiction and is banned from Russia permanently because it scarred several KGB agents.
Oh, man, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yes. So the idea that Lana was taken seriously as a character, I found extremely amusing. Then they actually tried to turn her into a wrestler because they're trying to make back money on their investment of signing Lana as a character because she was dating Rusev and is now engaged and married to Rusev. Oh, poor guy.
Yeah, you can't help who you... Well, I mean, I guess you can't help who you marry, but God help the guy.
He's basically become the modern-day John Morrison of WWE. Remember John Morrison?
Johnny Nitro Morrison Mundo?
Yep, Hennigan.
Yes, Johnny Nitro Morrison Mundo Hennigan. Yeah.
Yes, so basically, Rusev and Lana is now the modern-day Molina Johnny Nitro, for those who knew about the mid-2000s WWE. Oh, boy. Yeah. So we have Lana, who is now in a situation where she is a wrestler going against Naomi, and Naomi's probably going to murder her.
Hopefully.
If Summer Rae doesn't get to her first.
Yes. If Summer Rae comes out and kills Lana, I will forgive this a little bit. Not completely. This shouldn't happen at all. I just want to see Lana gone, really.
You've gotten to that stage of the wrestling denial spectrum.
No, I just want her gone. I don't care who gets rid of her. I just want her done. Out. You're gone. You fail. Good day, sir.
I never and see this is exactly what Vince wants or everybody else in that company wants, because these people are very good, because it's in their job description, folks, is to manipulate people. People are now so enraged about Lana appearing that she is going to get legit heel heat from the Smarks to the point of that the entire arena will shake from the loud boos of this character appearing.
And I hate that he's now getting into the meta booking here.
Yes, the dangers of the meta booking when you go too far. Vince has proven this theory. The Bucks and Kenny Omega have proven this theory. When you go too far into the meta booking and start taking it completely seriously, that's when the trouble begins and ends.
Yeah, not to mention meta booking in and of itself is just annoying.
Because you're literally trying to speak to an audience that is about the 5 percentile of your audience.
Yeah, you're trying to piss off 5% for no reason, really. Maybe 20% at most in some cases, It's just, it's stupid. I hate meta storytelling in general. It's just annoying and I feel like pretentious at best. And in WWE's case, it's just stupid, annoying, and pointless. It's annoying me because I just want to watch wrestling and boo heels and cheer faces. That's it. I want a likable face. That's all I want. I don't want to have to deal with this Roman meta booking crap. And I feel bad for Roman, even though he probably doesn't care, which God bless the guy. I don't want to deal with this.
I'm making my merch checks.
Yeah, exactly. Good for him, I don't want to deal with this Lana bull crap, and I won't even say anything nice about her. She can go fuck herself. But that's where I'm at. I just want it done.
Yes, I mean, here's the thing. Unlike Sal, I've got nothing really against Lana at this point. She hasn't done anything to me, as far as I know that she has had some issues within the wrestling community over the last few months, but basically the best way to treat this situation is just sit back, relax, watch the person literally self-destruct in front of you, and then just move on with your life. Because that's what I'm going to do with this whole Lana thing. Because basically, her death sentence is either she's going to be crushed by a crate by Summer Rae, or she gets squeezed to death by Naomi.
Or we enter the darkest timeline.
Which then we will talk about in 2 weeks when after Money in the Bank happens.
Yeah.
So I think that we've done a really good job here today. We talked about Extreme Rules. We talked about some segments on Raw. We talked about some stuff on SmackDown. And anything that we didn't get to, we'll get to, I think, next week. Does that sound correct?
Yeah. Just a quick shout out to Mark Jindrak, the former Mark Jindrak, Marco Corleone. He is your new CMLL World Heavyweight Champion.
And may he be a more noble champion than Maximo Sexy, who decided to destroy a powder blue Mustang that belonged to Ultimo Guerrero.
Yeah. That was a nice car too, man. Move, Maximo.
I'm trying to think. I've asked this question a few weeks ago. I'm like, does a car getting destroyed by luchadors get covered under your car insurance in Mexico?
I'm not sure.
I think it's possible because it falls under human damage.
Wouldn't surprise me, yeah. Wouldn't surprise me if they had some sort of luchador insurance.
Yeah. Coverage for luchadors beating up your car in a legit incident.
Yeah. That whole situation was messy, but good for Marco. I know it made friend of the show CJ Curtain Jerker happy. So, but yeah, and that was the real big other happening in the world of wrestling. And before we leave, just quick shout outs to a few of the friends of the podcast. We have some friends who do Not Your Demographic. That's Stella and who's the co-host? I can't.
Aaron Klein.
Aaron Klein. Wednesday Night Shooting with Tanya Rogers and Andrew M. Swift.
Mm-hmm.
There's Rudo Radio with Mark Nordman.
Mark and Nick.
Mark and Nick. And then there's Cage Side Speaks every now and again with Sean and Dia.
That's Cage Side Live.
Or Cage Side Live, excuse me. Sorry. You do Cage Side Speaks.
Yeah.
Every now and again. And then we have friends of the show who had a great show last night and who had part 2. Oh, I should mention part 1 of the Lana Berrien trio went to Wednesday Night Shooting with Andrew M. Swift and Tanya Rogers. Part 2 went to Crazy Chris 576 and Curtain Jerker, 2 Guys 1 Sports, which aired yesterday due to some commitments one of the two had. I've heard from them. I think it should be in its normal time next week. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But they had a great show. Go check them out. Great friends of the podcast. And yeah, I delivered part 3.
Mm-hmm. But technically, the part 3 was a little bit different, folks, than the parts 1 and the parts 2, because we decided to dig a little bit deeper into this instead of just pure F Lana this and F Lana that. But, you know, Sal is very passionate about the world of professional wrestling, and honestly, and like we said last week about the Seth Rollins injury thing, I actually don't wish any harm upon Lana or this and that and the other thing. Like I said earlier, just let Lana self-destruct, and this problem will soon be over, folks.
Yep. But, you know, we'll see you guys next week, though.
We'll see you guys next week for, what is it, Sal?
Previewing Money in the Bank.
Ah, yes, Money in the Bank, or as it's called in episode 15, Rupee in the Bank.
Ooh. Oh, God.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we're going all Bollywood India, folks, next week. So see you then at its usual time at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also tune in this weekend because Cage Side Speaks will be doing an episode on Extreme Rules. And thank you so much for tuning in on this edition of Fizzy's Wacky World of Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed going out of the frying pan and into the bonfire. So see you next week, folks.
See you guys.